Mafia's Definitive Edition was released in September, and my friend Minimme released his incredibly good video about it over the weekend. I've known this video was coming since the moment the Definitive Edition was announced. We both immediately fanboyed out about the announcement, and unlike him, I even went and played Mafia 3 again, which isn't great but isn't bad, and, it would have been well regarded as an entry into the true crime series instead of Mafia. All this is to say that there's really nothing I can say about Mafia that he hasn't already said, and said better. But I'm not about to let him get away with all that sweet organized crime gameplay videos. So let's talk about Gangsters. Gangsters Organized Crime was released at the end of 1998, and it was the first game from developer Hothouse Creations. Hothouse was created by three friends in 1996 and would release games for IDOS, THQ, the real THQ, not the modern-day Frankenstein, Zoo Digital, and Konami. Games such as American Idol, Casino Inc., Crime Life: Gang Wars, Abomination: The Nemesis Project, Cutthroats: Terror on the High Sea, and Gangsters: Organized Crime, and its sequel, Gangsters 2: Vendetta. One clear trend that really becomes apparent when you have to write these names out is that they loved names with a colon. In any case, there would never be a Gangsters 3: anything, because in 2005, after Crime Life: Gang Wars was released to shockingly bad reviews, Hothouse would be purchased by one of those companies they'd previously worked with, Zoo Digital. Interesting side note here, Zoo is the one company that's probably affected you personally more than any of the others we're talking about here, because they are the subtitle company for Netflix and Apple. Perhaps needless to say, but after being purchased, Hothouse didn't make any other games and instead were used to create DVD menu software. But before all that, they made Gangsters. And I want to say, this game is not super influential. It's not very important in the grand scheme of things. It didn't pioneer any new genres, and it was reasonably successful, but not notoriously so. But it still did some things very, very right. And to talk about those, I'd like to start with its sequel. Gangsters 2: The Mobster Sim, which, yes, it was also confusingly called that for a while instead of Vendetta, iterates on the gameplay of the original to the point that I can explain the sequel, and it will translate really well in a few minutes when I talk about the original. You are Bane, and your father was murdered by the mob. Now, you are going to take over the city of New Temperance, district by district, in order to build up your own mafia, so that eventually you can take on Frankie the Hammer Constantine, aka the mobster that killed your daddy. Boiled down, Gangsters 2 is a strategy game, a management game. You have gangsters that you control, and those gangsters can be sent to do various jobs: kill people, drive things somewhere, claim territory, or run a business, or patrol your territory, for examples. Each level is a section of the city, and you move your mobsters throughout that city, taking over businesses, setting up breweries and brothels, and completing objectives. One of the most interesting things this game does, by the way, and I do want to give it credit for neat ideas, is that each level you start in a piece of territory that resembles the level you just beat. So you feel sort of like you're actually growing and succeeding and accomplishing something through the storyline. The objectives for each level vary pretty wildly, but they do fall into a couple of buckets. Murder a specific someone, murder a group of people, claim a specific business or set of businesses, or kidnap someone. To help you do this, your gangsters have a series of abilities, such as being hitmen and pulling off assassinations, or throwing bombs into buildings, or being a safecracker, or an expert driver, or whatever. These abilities are further strengthened through skills such as spying, charm, and more. You then use these gangsters to take over territory, and the territory to hire and outfit new gangsters, and so on until each level is completed. After completion, you can upgrade your gangsters' skills and abilities and hire new gangsters as permanent members of your crew to take to future levels. unless they die, of course. Getting into a fight, especially with the police, can lead to some serious swarming that will end your mobster's life pretty quickly. There is the ability to set their aggression to low, however, which will see them surrender to police, and then you can break them out of jail later. Or not, leave them to rot if you'd like. There's no snitches in Gangsters 2. There are a lot of really good gangster games. Mafia, Grand Theft Auto, even the Godfather series. They're not strategy games, they're not management games, but they're really good at itching the scratch that is gangland. Even in the strategy game genre, there's Mob Rule, which is loosely gangland related, but technically a management game. However, all of these have something in common with Gangsters 2. Specifically, the linear and scripted storyline. You are completing levels. And while Gangsters 2 does try really hard to make it feel like each level is connected to the next, there is this inevitable disconnect. It's not the same city. You're not taking over a larger and larger section, it's a different map. In Mafia, the framing device used is a narrator telling a story that extends over a decade of time. And in GTA 5, it's framed through multiple characters who live a life outside of the player's view. And so there is no expectation that you are affecting this world. But in Gangsters, this is supposed to be your story. And it's not. It's Bane's story. And each level works to reinforce that. You may be making changes, but those changes are refuted and discarded for the canon storyline. This is directly at odds with Gangsters, the original Gangsters, literally the OG. In Gangsters, the story is whatever you make up in your head. It's a sandbox game, and the story that will be told is yours and yours alone. There are no missions, no objectives, no judgment. The game never steps in to influence your decision-making. You decide how your empire of sin grows. Will it be a city of gangsters or simply mob rule? You are Tony Soprano, or maybe you're Tony Blundetto, but either way, the rise to fame or fall from grace is entirely your own choice. The only real game-given direction are the victory conditions. Be elected as mayor through popularity with the people, leave the life of crime behind and go straight by having enough money to become a real businessman, kill all of the other gangs by destroying their property, encouraging the police to arrest them, bribing and threatening until you win, or die. Though that's not much of a victory condition, it is an ending. As opposed to its sequel, this game is also more tactical and is split into two phases. A planning phase where you direct your gangsters, and a weak phase where your commands play out. You can set your mobsters towards buying properties, setting up protection rackets, bribing people, or perhaps hiring an accountant to evade taxes and auditing for scams. Or maybe you decide to set up a soup kitchen. Think Rainbow Six. And if you understand what I mean, then you're an ancient gamer, and you should take a moment of your retirement to explain to the confused people in the comments how R6 could ever be like this. During the work week, you can give basic order changes to adjust to things that your rivals are doing. Maybe you put a tail on a rival to see what they're up to and then order them killed. Maybe you decide to buy a gym so you can set up a racketeer in the back room. Throughout all this, each individual's mobster stats come into play. Perhaps this mobster is not very loyal to you, so they're going to skim a few dollars off the top of your collections. Perhaps this one will actually betray you and give your information to the enemies. Or maybe this one is too stupid to live, so he'll see a cop and immediately open fire, drawing hundreds of cops and massive firefight, leading to that entire crew's weekly work being disregarded thanks to a small case of death. There's a lot to do in both sections, though I imagine most players decided they liked one mode or the other more. It's hard to picture someone poring through newspapers and charts and diplomacy and maps and filters and building the perfect set of instructions to maximize extortion and protection collections, and then also enjoying doing none of that and sending bombs into City Hall. It's also pretty clear, at least to me, that Gangsters 2 was made with the understanding that people didn't enjoy the planning phase, and therefore it would just focus on the action. And since the planning disappears, well, you're not really the boss anymore, so you can't decide what the aims of your criminal organization are. And so a storyline must exist. It must drive the story forward. Now, I don't want to suggest that the original game was flawless, because it wasn't. And it still isn't. If you saunter over to GOG and pick it up, you'll find that it probably won't work for you. And you'll have to do a lot of labor to get it to work, which it may not ever do. But assuming you can get it to work, you'll find that the tutorials are laughably incomplete. Your planning phases can mysteriously fail for seemingly no reason. You can give orders that are impossible and will always fail. Your gangsters can disregard your orders entirely, only rather than doing so because they are disloyal or too stupid, they just stand there, stuck, forever. Or the game could just outright crash. But it's still very, very interesting, very good and fun and unique. The repetition is cathartic and rewarding, and when you are successful, you feel successful. You built this, and it is yours. You'd think they'd make a sequel to it or something. In 2013, Minimme Games, a Bulgarian developer famous for Tropico 3, 4, and eventually 5, working with Calypso Media, famous for Tropico Dungeons, Mora, Port Royale, and Patrician, would release Omerta, City of Gangsters. And if you were expecting this thanks to my earlier Easter egg, you can see the future too. Omerta is something of a spiritual successor to the Gangster franchise. It is a Gangland-era strategy game, but that tends to be where the comparisons end. It's more of a limited Tropico, perhaps unsurprisingly, with a very slick and very attractive presentation that ultimately leaves you wanting more, and maybe even feeling frustrated by it because of how much potential Omerta had. Instead of a planning phase and an action phase, such as in Gangsters, or an action phase and such as in Gangsters 2, there is instead an action phase and a turn-based XCOM clone phase, where you control your gangsters in turn-based closed-quarter cover-based combat. Unfortunately, the city management side is also pretty limited. If you find yourself enjoying this side of the game, you would literally be better off just playing Tropico, because that at least has a serious devotion towards making this gameplay good instead of shallow and boring. And the combat is equally not great, though it apes XCOM to a great extent. The tactical team building and polish from a dedicated turn-based tactical game, it's just not there. Once again, if you like this gameplay, you'd be better served playing a different game entirely. So there's really nothing quite like Gangsters, even still. Obviously, I am aware of Empire of Sin. This game comes out shortly after the release of this video, and you can actually pre-order on my store in the description below and pick it up. I firmly intend to do so myself, but I'm not coming into this game with the expectation of it being Gangsters, because it won't be. If anything, it's closer to Omerta, a tactical, isometric, turn-based cover shooter, though with some very interesting RPG and open-world elements. And it's being developed by John Romero and Brenda Romero, who a lot of people tend to forget was a talented game developer before she met John. It looks super neat and has some very unique attachments to the tactical gangland game. There's not a lot of these, so each one is notable simply for existing. But I seriously don't think Empire of Sin is going to be some incredible Gangsters 1.5. It's just not the same kind of game. But it does look cool. You know what else looks cool? Subscribing to this channel. It's basically the coolest thing you can do. And you can even do like a premium version, a deluxe version, if you will, by clicking the bell next to the subscribe button and elevating your subscription to the next level. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.